system? Not democratic, but democracy. And remember that the types are more general things. For example, aristocracy, autocracy, democracy, basically all the ones that are in CI. Okay? CY, sorry. Autocracy, anarchy, socialism, and communism. So, what is the type of government? That's a system. There is a division of the No, because it's not just the family, the royal family, but are close. So, when you have a prime minister, when you have one person ruling the country, what is the type? Autocracy. It's democracy and autocracy. Autocracy basically because you have only one person, in this case the prime minister. Okay? Democracy because you have elections. Okay? And they choose their representatives. Okay? That is the type. The system would be a parliamentary monarchy or a constitutional monarchy. The things that I want to use constitutional as a word from the UK because they don't have a written constitution. What is the opposite of written? Unwritten constitution. Okay? So they do have laws, they do have legislations, but they do have the famous constitutional rules. Okay? For example, in Venezuela we have the tiny one, the blue one, the one that the president always shows in the cadena presidencial. Según la Constitución de la República Bolivariana, en 1999, that was the last one, and they want to reform again, but no. And the US has a written constitution. Another book is black, if I'm not wrong. But in the case of the UK, they have archives of bills, legislations, laws. Okay? It's not literally a folder, but let's imagine it's a folder because it's more formal action than a folder. Okay? So they are on paper and online, but they are not in a compendium of books. That is why it is unwritten. Okay? Is it clear? The government is divided into three branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. In the case of Venezuela, for example, we have 5 branches. We have these three. We have the civil branch, and what is the other? Electoral. The electoral branch. Okay? The second A. Okay. Who rules in the executive branch of the UK? And? No. The Prime Minister and who else? not linked to the monarchy in terms of the monarch rules the country or so. No. Okay, it's just the prime minister that they have that title. They are still the royal government. Okay? The title is traditional, or another title, the name is traditional. It comes from ancient times, or since ancient times, and so on. Okay? And we also have the local governments and local authorities. Local governments are basically smaller portions of lands in the four countries that belong to the UK. Okay, remember that the UK is one huge nation composed by four countries: Northern Ireland, Wales, England, and Scotland. Okay? So, since the Parliament and since the Prime Minister cannot rule over all these countries because they are way too big, he cannot be in all those places at the same time, he has some local authorities. These local government places or so, or portions, are called councils. Okay? And the local authorities are called councilors. These would be consejeros in Spanish. Or concejales, more than consejeros. So, concejales from the consejo. In the case of Venezuela, local governments would be basically alcaldías. Okay? So those alcaldías are the metropolitan or district councils. Yeah? And that's it, basically. Is this clear? Okay. It gets more complicated when we introduce the legislative branch. But these four here are kind of a mix between the executive or the legislative. It's not entirely executive because they don't have a president or whatever, and it's not entirely legislative because they don't have real parliamentary power. Okay? As I said, the Prime Minister cannot be in all of these places at the same time. He, by the way, is based in London, and even though he decides what happened nationwide because he's the Prime Minister of the UK, he needs some help. And the same to the Parliament. The Parliament needs some help from the four countries they literally possess. Yeah? So that is why we have smaller parliaments, or basically assemblies. Okay? Assembly or smaller parliament because they don't have legal power to pass bills. Okay? To create a law, constitutionally speaking. Yeah? So we have the Scottish Parliament, we have the National Assembly of Wales, we have the Northern Ireland Assembly, and we have the Greater London Parliament. Okay? This is the name, but it's a parliament. These people pretty much focus on environmental measures, healthcare, education, cultural development, internal security, for example, the ones that deal in the streets. Okay, so transportation, by the way, something specific from that place or from that region that does not necessarily need the involvement of the UK Parliament because they are simple tasks. Okay, that is why in Venezuela, for example, since we are just one country, we don't have these, but we have these local governments, and basically they do the same. However, they regulate the decisions the local government or the local authorities do. Okay? They regulate it in the case of they literally make the councillors follow the law that was first approved in the UK Parliament. Okay? So these people have specific rules that were generalized here. Can you see it? Yeah? Yes, better? Okay. Again, assembly, because the term even says the word assembly, asamblea. Okay? Not real political power. They just focus on smaller regions. Okay? And in Venezuela, we do have an assembly, the National Assembly. And that will basically be our parliament. It's not a parliament, but an assembly, no un parlamento, sino una asamblea nacional, because they don't have as much power as the executive in our country. At the end of the day, the executive is the one making decisions. He's the one literally claiming that Venezuela has relations with Cuba, with or without the US, with China, with Russia, with Iran. It's the executive. The legislature in Venezuela, the assembly, is going to create the law based on what this person says. Okay? In the case of the UK, it's the opposite. These people rule. These follow the rule because they are less. Okay? And not only because of that, but because these people are majority. Prime Minister, just one. The cabinet, 20. And these people are not in parliament. These are. Okay? So this is a huge one. Yes? So that is basically why. And the judicial in Venezuela and also here interprets the law. Basically, they analyze the proposals, the bills, or the laws per se, and they decide if they are constitutional or not. If they follow the previous laws that were implemented in the country or not. In the case of Venezuela, of course, we know that this decentralization or this decentralized government is very much centralized. So it doesn't matter what enters in la Sala Constitucional del Tribunal Supremo de Justicia or the Supreme Court, okay? Everything is going to pass because it comes from the same wing. And that is why, again, this is kind of, well, no, this is decentralization. Remember, decentralization is that you don't have one ruler. Okay? Power is equally divided. In Venezuela, even though we have 5 branches and we are supposed to be a decentralized government, we are not. We are centralized because we all the branches follow the same type of government. They don't have a sort of opposition, and if they do, you know what happens. Okay, so we are centralized. Politically speaking, internationally speaking, we are decentralized and we are a democracy. Okay? So don't say when you are interpreting or when you are translating that we are in a dictatorship, because that's a lie. Even though we perceive that we are indeed in a dictatorship, okay? But the formality is that you keep it democratic, because we still have elections. We still decide who rules. Okay? And basically, the day after tomorrow, there are some elections. So you see? Then what happens? Okay. By the way, these people call for elections as well. They are elected by citizens, depending on their specific country. Scottish are going to vote for the Scottish Parliament. Okay, they have, I think, 22 representatives. That is why it's smaller. They don't need too many people to focus only on culture. Okay. And for Wales, you have 11 representatives. And Welsh people vote for these representatives. In Northern Ireland, you are going to have 11 as well, if I'm not wrong, because remember that Northern Ireland is just like this. Okay, it's small. Literally, it's smaller than Wales. And in England, you are going to have more, of course, because it's basically the center of politics in the UK. Even though they are smaller than Scotland, by the way, but well, what can I say? They have 317 authorities in their English Parliament and also in the local government, because that is the land division. Okay? The judicial branch, as I said, is the Supreme Court in England. In Venezuela, we also have the far so good. Any questions? No? Okay. I didn't think that's anything, by the way. I guess you know the new measures. We have 2 liters in weight. Get the others on paper. Let me see. Let me see.
I hate that.
And please, 7, 25, 20, 25. Right? Okay.
Bueno, por donde estaba te inventaron una villa. Cerraron una villa.
Uh-huh.
Bueno, una marcha se terminó.
And some more questions, right? Teacher. 32. Hi, well, you lost a lot. Talk to your classmates at the end. Okay, any questions? No? Okay. So 32, 11, 20, no. 32, 22, 11, 317. As I said, and let me read it so that you get it. And these people control agriculture, 17. 317 or 317. 11, 22, 32. Okay. So these people, these parliaments, these assemblies, they control agriculture, education, health, and this is not a dictate, so up to you what you write, housing, justice, transportation, culture, language, that also is part of culture, environment, and planning. Okay, planning as in, for example, building a park. Okay?
Can you repeat agriculture, culture?
Again, it's not a dictate, it's what you write. Agriculture, education, health, housing, justice, transportation, culture, language, environment, and planning. And more or less taxes. Why taxes? Because taxes, first of all, is something that the parliament controls alone. But these people need to collect taxes from public services, for example, examples for transportation, electricity, water system, okay? So they can be paid, basically. Okay, remember that taxes pay for government. Okay, so yeah. And a part or a side of the taxation or tax collection goes also to the parliament. Remember that these people also need some taxes. For example, importation, exportation goes here. If you need a visa to enter the country, but by the way you need, it doesn't matter if you're from Europe or whatever, you need a visa because of the European Brexit. The Brexit permit requirement. And that money goes here. That tax, that no income enters here. And legalizations, papers, citizenship control, here. Okay, so everything at the end of the day goes here, but smaller taxes for public services, here. Okay, to your local authorities, your local governments, and your local parliaments. Okay? So at the end of the day, if we use Venezuela, these parliaments at the end of the day, they are accountable to these people. Okay, if these people say we're not going to work for, I don't know, we're not going to collect more taxes related to public services, you are not. Okay? And also that is why they have less people, because they don't have much work to do. So it will be paying for nothing. Okay, any questions? Okay. Now let's tackle the legislative branch of the UK. I think. So the UK Parliament, okay? Remember UK? 4 countries. So they control everything. Okay? They create laws, they create legislation. They discuss. Okay? We have 2 houses. The upper house and the lower house. We have the House of Commons, of course, and what is the other house? House of Lords. House of Lords. What is the upper house? The House of Lords. Are you sure? Yes. Upper. So the upper is the Lords. Yes? So the lower would be the Commons. Really? Are you guys be sure? Yes, it's like that. The upper house is the House of Lords. Just because of the title. Okay, you remember that they are nobles, yeah, and they received some titles from the monarchy. So they have a closer relationship with the monarch. That is why they are upper. But at the end of the day, or ironically speaking, they do nothing. The ones ruling are the House of the members of Parliament and the House of Commons. Why? Because they are elected. People elect the Commons. Okay? And that is the treatment they get. Commons. Beautiful. And by the way, after they finish their times here, Commons can be Lords. Just for you to know. I mean, they do really important things for the country. For example, Churchill, literally the one that saved the world from the Second World War, he was a Lord. Margaret Thatcher, an amazing Prime Minister, was also a Lord. A Lord, okay? You can be a woman, but you still have the title of a Lord. Of course, she was a baroness, or yes, I don't remember the title, but in succession, you are just a Lord. And you wear the white wig. For example, in Mia Thermopolis Rinaldi, the woman that became member of Parliament, well, like that. It's beautiful. Okay. La asistente de la reina. I don't remember her name. Hopefully, she is in the new movie. I love her. And the reports follow. Okay. This is quite complicated because we have several things going on in the same place. Today we're going to talk only about the Commons. Next week we are going to discuss, we're going to see what we can do about the Lords. Okay? And how a bill becomes a law. A bill is a proposal of a law. Okay? It needs to be a bill before it becomes law. Are we clear on the terminology? Okay. So, in the House of Commons, as I said, we have the Prime Minister as the leader of the winning party in the elections. Okay? And we have the ministers, the member of the cabinet. Okay? They are also part of the House of Commons. They are members. They are MPs or members of Parliament too. Okay, be careful. PM, MP. Okay? 2 different things. They're not the same. And what else? And well, we have some other people. 629 other people. Yes? Because 21 are these. Okay. In the UK Parliament, we have 650 constituencies. These are the political units, the political divisions of the territory. Each country has a specific number of constituencies. For example, in England, they have 533. In Scotland, they have 59. In Wales, they have 40, and in Northern Ireland, 11. Okay, again, remember that Northern Ireland is more. So again, in England, 533. In Scotland, 59. Wales, 40. Northern Ireland, 11. So those are the numbers of representatives they have, or each country, generally speaking, have in the UK Parliament. Different from the representatives they have in the other parliaments or assemblies. Okay? Do not mix the numbers because they are different and they do different things. Okay, so careful. In the exam, I am not going to literally ask you about those parliaments or those assemblies. I am going to ask about the UK Parliament. So don't mix the numbers. Okay. And the members of the Parliament are elected every 5 years. When were the last elections? When were the last parliamentary elections in the UK? A year, I don't know. Give me a year. No?
2 years.
That will be 2030. It was the 4th of July, ironically, on the Independence Day of the US. July the 4th, 2024. So a year ago. Okay, thank you. So keep that in mind. Last year was literally election year in many countries. It was in the UK first, then in Venezuela. We know what happened. We don't talk about Bruno here. And then again on the US, or in the US, sorry, at the end, in November. We're going to talk about the US in September. Okay? The same information. The legislative branch are basically the executive because they have a president, so yeah. September. Ooh, Jesus Christ. By the way, if you don't understand this, you're going to suffer 3 more times with the US because it's more complicated. So yourselves. This term is more complicated than the previous one, I tell you. This is literally the field. If you don't do your best here, well, see you next year. That's what I'm going to tell. So please read and be curious about culture and history and what happens in politics today. Not because this only, but also because you're going to be using this in your career. Okay, basically this depends on everything in your career. Hey. we lived nearby, if we lived at UCB, we would be holding English equipment and better. Okay, so yeah. But in English, or at least in British English, that becomes English. Okay? And the people becomes constituents. They are not called like that because at the end of the day they are members of the parliament, so MPs. That's it. Okay. Going back to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister rules the country at the same time as in Parliament, 5 years. His primership. Okay? That's the name of his rule, primership. Okay? It's not a presidency because it's not a presidential system. Careful with that. Basically a republic. We have 20 ministries in the UK, and 3 of the most important are the Treasury Ministry or the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that actually is something that the Prime Minister controls. Okay? So he not only controls the whole country, but also money. And we have an important Chancellor of the Exchequer in the Tudor era. So go back to the first term, go back to the Tudors and try to find it, because it was amazing. And we also have the other 2 important things are the Home Secretary, or the one ruling inside, that we at Ministerio de Interior Justicia y Paz in Venezuela, even though it was a Ministerio Interior. Okay? And we have the Foreign Office, the Foreign Secretary, and Ministerio de Exterior. Ministerio de Exteriores. Okay? So those are the 3 that are most important in the UK. There are also some other ministries, for example, energy and industry, and economy, as in inside economy, and so on. Culture, blah, blah, blah. Education. Okay. And again, as I said, they belong to the parliament. They are members of parliament. These people are appointed, or not appointed, but elected by the Prime Minister when they win the elections. Okay? So, if I am the leader of the party, here, if I am the leader of the Conservative Party and I win the elections, my party wins the election, I become the Prime Minister and I choose my cabinet. Okay? So that is why, if you want to be a member of the parliament, if you belong to a specific party, that is why you need to be friends with the leader, so that you can be chosen. If you don't want to be chosen, well, up to you. And I believe you're right, that's it. Okay, what else? Let's talk about the voting system, because it's not complicated, but it has its beautiful trick. First of all, to vote in an election they can vote, but they are not considered British citizens because they are outside the main island. Okay? That is basically why Great Britain is just 3, because you have England and Scotland, and over here, literally lost between, no, it's literally lost land in England, you have Wales. Okay, that is why if Wales were outside, Great Britain would only be 2. Okay? And that's it, basically. Those are the only requirements if you want to participate in an election process. You can be nationalized as a British and you can vote. Yes. If you are the child of an immigrant, but you are legal, you can vote. Remember that citizenship also works different in different countries. For example, in the US, if you were the child of an immigrant, you were American. Basically until this year, because they are changing that. So you were American. Your parents were immigrants, but you were American because you were born in the territory. Okay? But in some other countries, it's not like that. If you are immigrant, you are the child of an immigrant. And you have the nationality of your parents. If you want to be recognized as a citizen of whatever country, you need to take a test. Okay? It's not your right. I think it happens in Italy today with Meloni, that is actually a crazy woman, Jesus Christ. If your parents are from Venezuela and you're born there, you're Venezuelan. But if you want to become Italian, take the test. Not when you're 18. Okay, and if your parents are deported, see you. You are deported too. Okay? Because you don't have any rights in the country. So yeah. That is a way of improving nationalism, but at the same time, it is surprised. The US did the same. Actually, some states abolished the First Amendment of the Constitution. So if you are born in America, you are not American. If you want to be born as an American, your parents literally have to go to America. But well, I don't know. Maybe they are not going to be received because it happens the same. For example, when you're pregnant and you travel with your new bum, voy a parir en Estados Unidos como yo en Afroamericana. No. Go back to your country. You're not allowed to travel. I think it will happen the same in the US. If they want if you're the newborn baby of an immigrant, they're going to tell you, go back home, go to your hospital, and as a result, you're going to be malito, depending on the nationality your parents have. Okay. But well, beautiful, American, amazing, American dream. Okay, let me do this. So well, going back to this. Okay, before the elections. Now we know what we need to do if we want to be citizens, if we want to vote. What happens when they call for elections? Basically, the elections are pretty much known by everyone because they are held every 5 years, as I said. So, in 2029, people know that they are going to have elections. So, in 2028, the parties start preparing. Okay? They choose whether they change, they appoint a leader, or if they continue with the same leader. Okay? Today, the leader of the Labour Party is Keir Starmer. That is why he's a Prime Minister. The leader of the Conservative Party is the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Okay? Both of them can continue being the leaders of both parties because they only ruled for one term. You can go for re-election only once. Re-election as in you are elected again, okay? That is why once, not twice. Once. It's not like as in Venezuela that actually you can go for re-elections forever, yes, but constitutionally speaking, and that is why they want to change it, is just once, and actually the period is 6 years, something like that. In the US, you can go for re-elections once, 4 years. if we are alive in 2028, to begin with. And not because we're going to commit the S word, but because of the world ending, literally. Okay, so that's it. And so every 5 years, so these people start preparing, as I said, they choose or they keep their leaders, as I said, this is the leader today, from the majority party. Then they start debating, and campaigning. Debates as in what are you going to do, what am I going to do, and they start throwing knives at each other in public spaces so that people can see and can create their own perception of the future leader. Okay? That is why campaigns are so important. Then we have the manifesto that is linked to these two little things. The manifesto is basically a paper of policies that each leader prepares so that citizens know officially what they will be doing when they are Prime Minister. Okay, so this is a policy paper, their ideas, their plans. And based on this manifesto, they are going to debate and campaign, okay, with those proposals. Basically, this exists in every country, okay, even though it's not the name they use, but it works because all of them, candidates, prepare a paper. Okay? So far, so good? Yes?
Sorry, you were talking about the former Prime Minister, the one who is leading us.
That was a while ago, actually.
Yes, no, but I wanted to know.
Rishi Sunak.
Yes. What is his?
He's the leader of the Conservative Party. Okay, let's make a little parenthesis so that I can talk about the parties. Okay, in the UK, there are many parties. But at the end of the day, the ones that are able to enter Parliament are only 7. Okay? And the ones that have the majority are the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. Okay? If we use the British accent, Labour Party and Conservative. No, I don't know what Conservative is. The accent, sorry. I will use a French tone and no, forget about it. But the Labour Party, it's the Labour Party. And so basically the two that always fight each other, the two that have most members, they're the two that rule the country. If not the Labour, the Conservative, vice versa. Okay. And you are too young to know the joke. That was a Miss, by the way. A Miss Venezuela. Beautiful. You know the meaning of la piscina? Estamos en la piscina. It's amazing. That's cultural heritage. Okay, guys, use Facebook, Jesus. Those memes, sorry, are there. Okay. So as I said, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. But we have some others. And we have the Liberal Democrats. We have the Scottish National Party. We have the Sinn Féin, but actually, I'm not dictating. You have this in the presentation. And you have the Sinn Féin, that is an Irish party. You have the Reform UK, that basically is a movement from the joint countries. And you have the Green Party. I think that all countries have their Green Party because they mostly focus on environmental measures. So Greta Thunberg would create a party. The US has a Green Party. Germany has a Green Party, the Green Party. I don't know if Italy has. I think it has, but I am not sure. So sorry. But well, the Labour Party is social democrat. Okay. The Conservative Party is liberal, ironically. Conservative, but they are pro-woke, for example. Okay? You know woke, right? liberalism. The Scottish National Party, they work for the Scottish independence. However, they are part of the UK Parliament as well. And the same for Irish republicanism. So basically to unite both Irelands. And Reform UK populism. And the Green Party, as I said, for environmental measures and progressivism. So the Green Party will be in hand with the Conservative Party in some ideologies they share. Okay, not entirely, because that is why they have a different party. Okay. When we have elections, as I said, either the Labour or the Conservative rule the country. The other parties become the opposition party. And like it or not, they don't have much power since the party that lost has more people. Okay, so it's unfair. At the end of the day, it's not a multi-party country, but it's just a party-based country. Basically, what happens in the US. Okay? Because there is a fake pluralism. Okay, they have answers, yes. We're going to have many parties, everyone is in parliament, but at the end of the day, if they vote, if all of these people align and vote against a measure, they are going to lose because they are less. Okay? For example, the one that has most and is still less is the Liberal Democrats that has 72 people. But the Conservative Party has 121. And the Labour Party has 406 and 11, sorry. Okay, they won, literally, they annihilated the Conservative Party in the last elections. Okay, going back to the election process, to the electoral process, before the election day, citizens receive a polling card. The polling card is a beautiful letter that tells you where you have to vote. It's not as in Venezuela that you register in the CNA and you know where you're going to vote because that's the place you registered. In the case of the UK, they don't have established places, or if they have them, they vary. Okay, so that I am not going to go in the same place on every single election. So that is why they send this confirmation letter. It's not literally a written letter, it's just a mail, an email. Today, traditionally, it was a letter, literally written word. Okay, so where can you vote? Basically in public spaces, schools or institutions, and churches. Remember that the Church of England is different from the Catholic Church, for example. So they are not literally churches with all the structure and so they are smaller buildings, similar to houses. Okay? Unless we're talking about the Great Church of England that actually is huge. It's a castle, by the way. But well. As I said, schools, libraries, also sports stadiums or sports venues or so, for example. If you watched High School Musical 3, that is a sports venue, you will go there. Okay? I think we have that in Venezuela too. For example, there is a mini stadium in Chacao, close to Millennium and so, that is an election center. My high school was an election center, and also the high school that is in front of my house is an election center. I go there actually. So yeah, public schools. So public spaces. Okay. So you received your card, you know where to vote. On the election day, you are going to go to your electoral center, and you are going to see some staff outside checking your letter and the lists. Basically, the same we experience here in Venezuela. You know that they ask for your ID, they check you are registered there, you need to go in this table and so on. So yeah, they do the same. And the only difference is that they don't have a card pública. So yeah, it's not that extent. Okay, you receive a ballot paper. The ballot paper basically is, of course, smaller see, I entered. This is my ballot paper, and I choose Natalie. Okay, so I voted for Natalie. I fold my paper and I put it in the ballot box. We have the same process in Venezuela. The only difference is that it's automatic and not on paper. This is better in the way. You're advanced, but you know what happens, so yeah, this works better. And then you put your paper in the ballot box, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the voting session, you're going to have the counting people, basically people that count. So they are going to open the boxes of the hojas, okay? And they are going to say, okay, let's count. Imagine that we are in a constituency of 7 individuals vote, okay? Where the statistic is. So only 7 people vote, okay? Natalie, 1. Josephine, 1. Josephine, another one. Luis, 1. Luis, another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Luis, another one. Natalie, another one. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So Luis won the constituency. So he is now elected in the parliament. Okay? He is a member of the parliament. But now we have to weigh if he belongs to the winning party or not. Or if he's going to be opposition. Okay? So after I checked my constituency, that imagine is El Salón 204 de Ingeniería. Okay? And once we know that Luis won, we're going to send las actas, we're going to send the boxes to the specific state place where they are counting, and they are going to make the addition, okay? And at the end of the day, I think it's on the same day, if not the day after or so, or the week after, more or less, no more than that. They are going to say if Luis belongs to the Labour Party. Okay, he belongs to the Labour Party. He won his constituency, so the Labour Party won according to all the issues we did. And the Labour Party won in the whole territory. Let's use the numbers we know. Labour like this, by the way, remember that it's British, okay? It's not Labour. Labour. 411 and conservative. And 121, right? So he belongs to the Labour Party, so he belongs to the government party. So he is government. These people are government too, but they are the opposition of the government. Okay? And together, they have to decide what to do. You can imagine the nights that they usually run in session. Okay? So they were elected, yes, that the majority is here, and to pass a bill, by the way, we're going to discuss that this next week, sorry, you need a simple majority. A half plus 1. These people have more than half. Okay? Because the half of this is, I know you can do it. It's 25. 325. Okay? This is the half. Plus 1. 326. So, forget about it. You're going to move it, you're going to go something to this. However, as a part or a member of the opposition, you make the government accountable. So if something fails, it's because of this people. And they use this as an advantage for the next elections. You need to wait 5 years, yes, but it is what it is. Okay? So that will be how it works. Again, the parliament is won upon a single majority, a half plus 1. The second happens with the decisions inside. And the first plus the post system. This is basically the first that gets more votes is a winner. I don't need to keep counting, okay? Again, we are in a constituency of 7 people. So if Luis received 3, it's not a simple majority. Okay, because winning on both sides. If that happens, you have to make a coalition. Okay? Basically, what happened with Lamut, for example, that were different political parties, all of them had the same ideology. Well, in the case, the ideology was to domain the country and so be against the Suba. Yeah, but they formed a coalition, so they won the elections, the parliamentary elections, my first election, by the way, in 2016, if I'm not wrong. They won the los escaños del Parlamento. But well, después no se la Asamblea Constituyente, so everything. That is a home parliament. You don't have a clear leader. It has never happened because it's almost impossible. However, it did happen for a short period of time with our beautiful Liz Truss. The former Prime Minister, she was Prime Minister after a lot of cases. After Brexit, after Boris Johnson, and he was a disaster, he needed to finish Brexit, but he didn't. And she was a Prime Minister when the Queen passed away. So you can imagine the pressure. She was literally put in a position that it's funny because she presented her credentials and the Queen accepted her as a Prime Minister, and the next day she passed away. So she said, I can't no more, forget about this. So she was in power for 45 days, not even 2 months. And then Rishi Sunak was appointed as the leader of the party, and he became Prime Minister because no elections were held. Okay? So he was Prime Minister by default. That happens. When you cannot hold elections because are unconstitutional, the second in charge is the one that becomes the Prime Minister. Okay? We're going to leave it here because it's late, actually. Please do this as homework. Okay, you have in the presentation the rooms, the description of the House of Commons in Parliament, and also the place. Where is the Parliament of the UK? Okay?